afternoon, everyone, and thanks. Welcome and thanks for joining us today. So my name is Arisha Prithipal, and I think through the sessions today, there's a lot of mention of processes through the entire day. I've actually noticed that, and Nsiki also mentioned it now, that you might think that it's not actually important for your business to focus on processes, but I'm actually here to try and change your mind on that. So today I want to take you through unlocking the value of business processes in your small business or SME. So as a small business or SME, I'm sure you would agree that small businesses are started with a passion that someone has. And usually, you started with a very thorough business model. So you look at things like who your target audience is, who you need to market your products or services to, where you would want to set this business up, who your suppliers and vendors could be, what you need to get started to buy, what you need to purchase or buy, the people that you need to hire. So a lot of focus goes into that business model initially, and that actually sets you up quite well for starting up your business. And it gets you on your feet running. But over time, you might become overwhelmed and frustrated with your business, and you're not sure what to do with the running of your business because of these feelings of frustration and those overwhelming feelings. You might actually lose that passion that you initially had when you started your business. And I think this is the point where business processes actually come in. And this business processes will actually help you to reestablish that passion that you initially had for your business, to take away those non-value adding activities of your business processes, so your business runs smoothly and you don't have to worry about the back-end operations, and everything runs efficiently and effectively. So if we look at what the definition of a process is, or a business process is, so it's actually moving from point A to point B. So it's a set of tasks or activities that take you from point A to point B, and there's a trigger that triggers your process, and you have to end with the end goal. That's your actual target state, or what you want to get to at the end. So there are lots of examples for business processes that are applicable to your business. So there's the sales and marketing process, accounts payable process, accounts receivable process, your service delivery process, which is an important one because that's the steps for delivering your product or service to your customer. Your records management process, which also has the legal aspect of it, of how long you need to obtain or retain your records, and in what platform can you actually retain those records. Inventory management could be another one, where you look at receiving, storing, tracking, and the physical of your physical inventory. So some or all of these could actually be examples of processes or business processes in your small business. And the names might be completely familiar to you, so you'll know these processes by name, and you would know how to do them. But the problem comes in when looking at these business processes. You might not see the inefficiencies or ineffectiveness of your processes that you are undertaking. So what usually happens with business processes is that the person undertaking the processes, they actually do what they think is required to do. And this is what you need them to do, but it might not be in the most efficient way. So it might actually end up including unnecessary steps. It might include unnecessary handover points, and then you might actually be building in redundancy in your process unknowingly. And all of these end up actually causing harm to your business. So the process also ends up being done slightly different each time that you actually undertake the process, or each time the person actually undertakes the process. And this causes the process to lose consistency, and in turn, it could actually affect your customer service. And this is especially true if this process is being undertaken by various different people in your small business. So this is actually why business process management is so important and why it actually matters. Because at the individual level, people only see a part of the process, and very few people see that bigger picture. And the bigger picture is important because you can see then where the process actually starts and where it ends, what's the key data that's actually needed, what the potential bottlenecks and where the potential bottlenecks and inefficiencies lie. And as we mentioned, unmanaged chaotic processes that include unnecessary steps, unnecessary handover points, redundancies, they actually hurt your business, and it can lead to one or more of the following scenarios. So it can lead to time and money being wasted. It can lead to increased errors, increased blame, a lack of data, as well as unhappy employees and customers. And unhappy customers is actually the complete opposite of what you want for your business. So the biggest problem also comes in when trying to grow your business. Inefficient processes actually make it almost impossible for you to grow your business profitably. So if we look at the steps to go through to actually try and improve your business process through business process management. So we'll actually look at analyzing the business processes, modeling how it works in different scenarios, executing improvements, monitoring the improved processes, and continually optimizing it. So the first step in this is to actually identify your critical business process. And critical is the key word in this, because your you don't want to focus on all the business processes in your small business or SME. You actually want to pick out those critical business processes that are key to your service delivery. So these critical business processes would be those processes that directly affect your customer, for example. The next step that you want to do is actually to map out the as-is process. So mapping out the as-is process is quite important because that gives you an idea of where you are currently. And you need two things that you need when mapping out the as-is process. You need the key stakeholders of the process. So you need the people that's actually involved in detail in these processes, so you can get the full idea of what actually is currently being done. And then you also need to get someone to observe. So to observe and record that activity that's being done. So that's the mapping of the as-is business processes. Once you have the as-is business process mapped, the next step is actually going into the review and identification of improvements. So in reviewing and identifying improvements, the first thing that you need to do is actually look at your as-is process and go through what is called process re-engineering. So this is looking at your as-is process and looking at ways that you can actually streamline your process without going into technology enablement or automation yet. So it's only looking at your process and looking at ways to make it more efficient and more effective. So in terms of the principles that you would look at when doing business process re-engineering, you would look for your non-value adding activities. So these are typically activities that take up time but doesn't add value. So you need to eliminate that work that's not value adding. And examples of these could be historic steps that's included in a process that somebody is doing, but it doesn't really need to be in the process because there's been improvements along the way, and these steps are redundant. It could also be if there was a legal aspect to your process in the past, and that legal aspect has changed currently, and due to that change, there might not be a need any longer for that specific activities or tasks to be undertaken in the process. So those are typically what you can look at in terms of non-value adding activities. Then you look at simplification. So we always need to simplify what we do. And the simpler the process is, the better. So we need to look at taking out the duplication in the process. So we need to take out that duplication to ensure that the process is streamlined and things that need to be done are done once, so not multiple times in the process where it's not necessary. Then we also need to design for the norm. So you need to design for what happens 80% of the time. And where there are exceptions to your process, you would look for that and you would pick those up as process risks. So you do need to identify them, and it does actually assist you with understanding what your risks are for your business. And depending on what the risk factor is, you can actually look at mitigation factors as well to mitigate those risks so that they don't turn up out of the blue. You actually have an idea of what the risk could be and what you can actually do to mitigate it. So only once this process re-engineering is done, then you should go on to looking at your technology enablement and your process automation options. And when we talk about digital technologies, you might think that it could be a lot of money in terms of implementing systems into your processes. And that's not completely the idea. So there are other solutions, or simple and effective, simpler solutions that are available. So if, for example, there's low-code or no-code solutions that are available that can be implemented. So simple ideas or examples are the use of Excel as a technology enablement tool in your process. So this is actually quite accessible, and it's something that can be implemented quite easily. Another example could be document routing for approvals. So a lot of the time, there's a lot of manual actions that go into approvals, getting approvals from various people and sending it to someone by email and then waiting for them to sign off on it. Even though it's through an electronic signature, it still takes time for them to actually sign off and come back to you with that information. And then it might even have to go to multiple people for signing off. And one of the things that can be looked at in terms of a simple solution to alleviate this is the document routing for approvals. Another option is looking at going the digital records route. So instead of having paper-based things being done in your process, the idea is actually to go more to the digital side. So actually use the digital platforms and tools that you have available for keeping your records rather than the paper-based options. So I want to take you through an example of what can be achieved through business process improvement. So on the left of the screen, you'd have a process before optimization. So there'll be quite a few, or you can see quite a few activities in this process. It looks quite a busy process. You'll see there's quite a few swim lanes on the process as well. And the swim lanes, going between those swim lanes, you can actually have an idea of the handover points between those swim lanes and between those tasks and activities. And the process on the right is after optimization. So after optimization, you can see that it's much less cluttered than the process on the left. So there are far fewer activities, and the handover points are also far fewer than the process on the left. So how was this actually achieved? So there's three things that you can look at when doing or when looking at process improvement, business process improvement. So the first thing is to look at the root cause of a problem. So a lot of the time, symptoms will show up, but you can't actually solve a problem by solving the symptom. So you need to delve a bit deeper and get to the root cause of the problem. Okay, and focusing on that root cause and actually fixing that root cause will allow for a more efficient process. Then another question that you can ask is, why are we doing this? And this is quite an important question, because usually when you ask the question and there's not really a good reason for something to be done, then you usually can say, or you can usually tell that there is room for improvement. So if there isn't a good reason, there might be an opportunity for improvement in terms of reducing the number of activities or tasks that is being done. So in this example of the processes, so the historic steps that weren't removed after a system enhancement was done, actually continued to be done after that system enhancement. And there were multiple steps that continued to be done for a while. And it was unnecessary and taking up time. And because the process was re-looked at, it was actually picked up that these steps are unnecessary and removed from the process. And this actually got a lot of benefits. So some of the benefits were that there were 8 steps that were removed from the process, and each step is actually something that saves time. So it's already a benefit in removing a step from a process. The cycle time from supporting documentation that was submitted to the invoice being processed actually reduced from 21 days to 7 days. So that's a lot of time that's been saved by just this optimization of the process. Then there was also a vacant position that one administrator that was vacant, and because the process was optimized, this position didn't need to be filled. And then optimization of the process can actually have other benefits, so external benefits as well. For example, in this process, some of the service providers actually waive their annual inflationary adjustments, as they could reduce their working capital due to receiving payments so much closer to the service having been rendered. So it's always good to actually ask these questions when looking at your processes and optimizing it. But the question to be asked is, how do you actually get there? So what approaches and tools can be used for this? So there are some everyday approaches and tools that are available to help your business process management journey. And depending on the size of your business, and if at all possible, it's always good to have at least 1 or 2 dedicated resources who practice business process management for your business. Some of the tools you might already have, and there are also low cost and free options depending on your requirement. So if we look at some of the approaches and tools, so in terms of analyzing your business processes, so for the analysis of business processes, a business process review session is something that would help in terms of trying to analyze those points that can be optimized on. So in this review session, it's important to have the key stakeholders, the people that's actually involved in this process, as well as somebody from the business process management background to actually be able to ask the key questions that need to be asked to be able to get to a solution that works. So the next analysis tool is customer surveys. So customer surveys can be used to understand pain points. And pain points is a key word here, because if you go to your customer or your employees, for example, and you ask them what are their pain points in the process, they might not, they'll give you a whole list of pain points, but if you ask them of what they think can be optimized in the process, they might not actually have anything on the list. So, but pain points is directly linked to what can be optimized, because if you have your list of pain points, you can follow that up with a root cause analysis and actually understand the cause of the pain points, and that can be used in optimizing your process. So another key tool that can be used is the business process maturity assessment, and this can be used in Excel, and this is used also to analyze your process. So I won't go into details now. I'll go into details in a little while on your business process maturity assessments. Then also measuring your process cycle time. So you can use your current reports and business intelligence solutions for these. And these help to understand how your process is doing through the system. So that's why it's using your business intelligence solutions to tell you how well your process is doing between certain points. And then the use case discovery. So the use case discovery is the use of scientific methods to find the right use case for automation. And this is referred to as the process mining solutions. And process mining actually captures information on how key processes are working from your enterprise system, and it creates event logs. And this could be, an example of this could be the time the order is received to the order delivered. So you'd actually get event logs of this to be able to understand how fast this happens or how slow this happens and where the bottlenecks are along the way. So you can actually focus on those points. So it gives you that analysis capability to focus on key points in your process to be improved on. Then in terms of business process modeling. So some of the approaches and tools here is also to set up design sessions. So you want to look at setting up design sessions to focus on the as-is business process, the review sessions to actually review your process for optimizations, and then also design sessions to focus on your to-be processes. And there's various tools that can be used. So a lot of them are accessible, so you can use the Microsoft Office tools for this. So it's a Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, as well as Microsoft Visio, if you do have access to that. And there's also actually low-cost or free software as well that's available for process design solutions and databases. And an example of this is Bazaji. So in terms of monitoring and improving your process, so if we look at monitoring and improving, this would come after actually implementing that to-be process that you would like to have. So if you implement any improvements and changes, you would want to know how that process is actually working for you. Has the improvements made any impacts? And is it giving you the value that you actually intended it to give you? So monitoring and the improved process is quite important, because here we measure the process cycle times after optimization with your current reports and business intelligence solutions. Then you can also use the customer surveys again, and these customer surveys can be used, or employee surveys as well, if it's related internally to your processes. And these can be used to determine if there's if customers are experiencing an improved service delivery, and if pain points have been addressed. And then again, we look at the process mining solutions, which can also be used again to monitor and improve the processes. So if we look at the key enablers of a healthy business process, so there's 4 key enablers that actually enable us to have healthy business processes, and these are looking at process, people, technology, and data. So on the process side, so there's a few questions that we can ask in each of these aspects to actually get to a good business process. So on the process side, are the processes documented properly? And are they well understood at a detailed level? And then are the processes periodically reviewed for optimization opportunities, or adjusted as the world and customer expectations change? And I think these are some of the points that we mentioned earlier, that there has to be that continuous improvement and that continuous cycle to actually look at those optimization opportunities and adjust your process accordingly, depending on your what your customer expectations are and how the world is actually working, or any legal aspects that may actually affect your business process. So the next aspect is the people aspect. And for the people aspect, one of the key things is to make sure that you have the correct people. And they need to have the fit for process skills and competencies for undertaking this process. They need to have been trained, and the training also comes back to if you're implementing your new processes into the business. You need to actually train people so that they're aware of the changes that they need to implement in the business. So if the training is not done well, or not done completely, or not done correctly, a person would just go to the old way of doing things. So then you won't actually achieve that value that you want to achieve at the end of it. So you need to actually upskill the people and train them on your processes, and to ensure that they can be accountable for those processes. And then it's also to empower people. So optimization is usually something that a person working in a certain role can actually assist you with in identifying where those areas for optimizations are. So you need to empower the people to be able to identify and implement the process improvement opportunities in their area. And this has to be in a governed manner, but there needs to be that platform for them to be able to identify and implement these opportunities. On the technology side, which is the third key enabler. So on the technology side, it's asking the question if, do you have access to systems and technologies that enables our core processes, so that we have the most optimal way, to make it easier for our customers and our employees. And then what opportunities do we have to automate repetitive tasks? So repetitive tasks and transactional activities, so that the employees can actually focus on the high-value activities rather than focusing on manual and repetitive tasks that take up time but don't add a lot of value. And the last point is on the data side. So do we have access to the right data to drive our processes that require such? So do we have the ability to generate and safeguard meaningful data during the execution of our processes, so that we can learn how to serve our customers better and have more efficient and effective processes? So I mentioned the business process maturity assessment. That is one of the tools that can actually assist you in unlocking that improvement areas that you can actually focus on. So a simple business process maturity will actually help you understand the focus areas and where you need to prioritize in terms of improving your business process. So we have that 4 key enablers as part of the business process maturity, and it's focused on people, process, systems, and data. And the idea of the business process maturity assessment is to give a score to each of those key enabler categories. So you would want to look at what your target score is and what your current score is. And depending on the difference between your target and current, that would actually give you your focus areas of where you need to focus your time. So the focus needs to be on core and critical processes, as we mentioned, because that's important to actually help you achieve your business goals and your business strategy. So it's important for your target maturity, it's important to understand your target maturity that you want. This is related directly to your business goals. And then also your actual maturity for each of the four key enablers. And then also just to note that not all four of the key enablers are equally important for each and every process that you have, especially if you're comparing intellectual type processes with the more transactional or high activity type processes. So to understand the business process maturity, you need to do certain steps to conduct the business process maturity. So the first step is to actually decide what your target maturity is for your process. So you need to have a look at your process and where you want to get to with your process, and actually then determine your target maturity. Then you would need to do a qualitative assessment of your current or actual maturity for each enabler of that particular process. So you can prioritize your process where you have the largest gap between your target maturity and your current maturity, because this would show you where you want to aim your business, in which direction you want to aim your business, and where you currently are, and then look at how to actually get there. So you must also understand the order in which you need to improve on your key enablers for a process. For example, you shouldn't start implementing a complicated system if you don't understand how your current process works. So this comes back to knowing your as-is process, understanding how your process works, and re-engineering your process so that you can actually streamline your process first before going into any technology enablements or automation or a complicated system. And also, don't try and fix everything at the same time. So you need to focus on one or two key enablers at a time that go together. So on the last slide that we have, so it's just in terms of intellectual processes versus the high transactional process, or the processes that require a lot of manual activities. So if we look at intellectual processes and we look at the spider diagram for intellectual processes, we'll see that it's focused a lot on people and data. So this example is for business strategy development. And for this type of process in business strategy development, the process is mainly dependent on the conceptual and strategic thinking of people based on the data that's available. So it occurs maybe once or twice a year, and technology and process automation is not a requirement in this process, because that's not going to assist you with actually making your process any more effective. It's the people and data aspect that's important in this process. That's the intellectual type process. And then if we go on to the transactional type process, an example of this is a customer order management process, you would see that your high transaction volume process depends on speed, accuracy, and repeatability. And you'd see that the spider diagram looks a bit different because the target maturity is spread out along each of those key enablers, and the actual maturity is also spread out where you need to actually achieve your target maturity. So this type of process, which is the transactional type process, occurs multiple times in a day. And it actually, technology enablement and process automation plays a key part in this type of process. So you need to get the process right initially. So as we mentioned, look at the process first, and then go to technology enablement and process automation. And business process maturity actually allows you to just pick up on those key enablement areas that you can actually focus on to get to a good business process or optimized business process. So I think that's actually, it brings me to the end of the session, and I hope that it's actually, you found it valuable and you inspired to actually look at your business processes and unlock that value that's, that hidden value that's in your business processes. So it's a good investment to, look at documenting, managing, improving, and measuring your processes. And it actually would help you to decrease that frustration and that overwhelming feeling, in running your business. I think this is a hidden key to actually unlock that value. And it's also to give you that best chance of growing your business, to bigger sites, or to actually, to grow your business and get that value that you want off your business. So thank you very much for the wonderful opportunity.
Arisha, thank you so much. I'm just going to come up here with you for a little bit and just ask you a few questions. Thank you so much for like a very detailed presentation. And I think everyone can just go through that and kind of figure out their own business processes.
Yes.
But I am mindful of people who kind of get stuck on where do I start, right? And I think sometimes we underestimate the things that we do because we're so used to doing them, we don't really see them as processes. So could you perhaps give us an example of like simple things a startup is currently doing that actually constitute a process?
Yeah, so it could be actually anything in CK. So and the main thing to starting is actually just physically start.
Yeah.
So the people that's actually working on in your processes, in your small businesses, and it could be in terms of getting customer orders and actually going through that customer order process to the delivery process, and that's an end-to-end process because you're starting from when you get the order from your customer right to the time that your order needs to be delivered. And you need to ensure that going through that process, you look at where your bottlenecks are, where your inefficiencies are, and the people involved throughout the process at each step need to be involved to actually identify what's being done currently. And then you can look at what you can actually do to improve on that business process and optimize it. So I think the simple example would be that, in terms of if you need to deliver a product to your customer, that would be one of your end-to-end processes, a key one that you actually have.
I completely agree with that. And I like the fact that you mentioned Excel as a tool because that's literally the simplest, most effective place to start.
Yes.
So something simple like, if you have all your orders coming through on WhatsApp and they're kind of like all sitting there and you have to manually go look through your orders, is to take the time to actually transfer them from your WhatsApp orders to your Excel spreadsheet so that you're actually tracking, who are these orders and so forth. And something like constantly making sure that the address, for example, is this, so you're not having to re-input the same information over and over again. But if somebody's ordering a second time, the key information that you need is already there, so you can track the processes and what's happening. Just a little bit on creating standard operating procedures. You mentioned earlier on that it's important that we record what we're doing, and then obviously if there's a standard process that happens in the business, when you bring somebody else in, you can just hand that over and they can be like, oh, okay, this is how we do this particular process, and this is an SOP. What's the value of having SOPs in a business?
I think the standardization aspect of it, because you need standardization in your business process to actually make sure there's consistency. So to get that consistency, you need anyone that needs to do that process to do it exactly the same. And it's not taking away the creativity, it's just making sure that what needs to happen happens at the correct time and within the correct time as well. So I think that's exactly it, so yeah.
Cool, and then I think the final question is, for people who struggle with their bottlenecks, right? So I think sometimes you are one person and so you're overwhelmed and then you kind of actually can't see the wood from the trees. What's a good way to identify that a process now needs to be automated?
I think it's exactly that, when you're frustrated. So I mean, if you have a lot of bottlenecks and it's taking you time to do all these manual activities, that's your pain points and you're getting frustrated. And that's the point where you need to actually go back and analyze your process. Because there's a lot of things that can be done better and faster and, in a more digital way. And there's easy, simple, low-code solutions that can be implemented. And I think you also mentioned it. There's a lot of training that's available, and there's free training that's available as well in a lot of platforms that you can actually look at to, do automation on your own maybe, or, get someone who's interested in it to do the training, and they can actually implement these low-code solutions for you. So there is a lot of opportunities in terms of the optimization.
Awesome, Arisha, thank you very much for sharing those insights with us. I really appreciate it as an entrepreneur, and I hope that you guys will take the time out at home to just set up an audit today, maybe Saturday or a Sunday, look through all your processes and refine stuff that you keep doing over and over again, and it's generally just wasting time, and you could be saving time and money by creating processes in your business. Thank you so much for joining us, Arisha.
Thank you.
So you can exit out.
Thank you.
So that's the end of our masterclass in-depth learning sessions, and I quickly want to check in with you guys on the app. So firstly, I see people who've joined us from different regions. So Musa's joining us from Mpumalanga. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jabulani is joining from Soweto. Kutso's joining from Lephalale. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in from everywhere. It's really great to see you all on the app engaging, asking questions, connecting with one another. I've been clicking through and I see somebody was offering business services that they give training on the Poppy Act. I saw there are a couple of businesses that do
landscaping and offering solutions around that. I saw a couple of other businesses offering legal solutions and things like that. And it's great to see SMEs marketing their businesses and connecting and networking with one another on the Slido app. So please, please, please continue to connect within the app. We'd like to hear from you. And then also keep an eye on the polls. We do run polls from time to time, just asking for feedback from you to find out if you do want more in-depth sessions and in-depth training or workshops, so we can offer those services to you post this particular event. And then also, just in addition to the app, please connect with us on social media at Sasol SA. Share your comments, share your insights, take a selfie with you and your screen so you can show us how you're virtually joining the event. And remember to use the hashtag built to Last SME and hashtag Sasol and Society. We'd like to connect with you. And also just like look at your business as well on social media. And for those of you who don't have social media yet, we look forward to you creating your accounts and then tagging us at Sasol so we can know that you're a part of today's events. I do believe it's lunchtime, so I'm going to let you all have a body break to go stretch, get some food, respond to emails, maybe make 1 or 2 important phone calls to a client or your next big deal, who knows what it may be. And we will see you back live on the stream at 2:30. See you shortly.